Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Welcome to the next session of Rumi-O-IQBAL Circle. We have had 6 sessions in the past, and as we progress, I'm hoping that I will be able to bring in Iqbal more into the discussion so that it's much more pertinent to more recent history as it relates to the affairs of the last century when Iqbal was motivated to write most of his verses. Obviously, when Maulana Rum wrote his Masnavi, at that time the state of affairs for the Islamic countries and the Muslim Ummah was very different. This was when a whole lot of trouble was being created by Mongols coming down from north and trying to destroy Islamic civilizations. They destroyed Baghdad, as you remember, and they massacred Muslims by the thousands. So, affected by that, Rumi expressed his feelings of that time, and Iqbal many years later, affected by the First World War and the conditions that were just preceding that, was impressed by what was happening in Islamic community and put down his verses, basically trying to address the Muslim Ummah at large, tell them that your home is not a particular nation or a country, but you are a collective group as a millat, as a ummah, and that your problems and the solutions for those problems are basically the same. So unity and oneness would be the way to go forward. As I read more about Rumi and Iqbal, I'm amazed at the similarities of their thinking and how they bring their message and their examples that they give and the subjects matters that they discuss. They bring it back into the purpose of life and how to use that and build it as a lesson so that you can improve your life and realize the purpose of life and live to be the true human being, Mard-e Kamil or Insan-e Kamil. So every story basically had an ending whereby you learn how to mold yourself in the way that you can realize the potential within you and meet your inner being, and so by so doing try to connect with your creator. So what I'm going to do is, today's topic is the world, Havas-e-Dunya, the greed for this world, trying to collect more and more worldly material in this world, and how that impacts on your true purpose of life. But let me start by just using 2 verses of Rumi. He starts by saying, Kuzae chashme harisan pur nashud. Kuzae chashme harisan pur nashud, ta sadaf kane nashud, pur dur nashud. He says the cup of the eyes of the people of greed can never be filled until the oyster closes his mouth after receiving 1 or 2 drops. There cannot be any pearls within that oyster. To make pearls, the oyster has to be content on whatever little drops of water go in there, and then he has to close his mouth so that rest of the stuff doesn't get in there, and then the pearl can grow. So in many parables that Rumi gives, basically he's trying to say that the worldly materials will attract you towards them, and how you have to mind this, realize what is happening with you, and try to get back to the straight path so that you can go back to where you came from. And like we have discussed in the past, that we are all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His spirit is within us, and that spirit, once purified, connects us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like the flute, when it's connected to the master, you can hear the beautiful music from it. Rumi uses that parable to say that we are like that flute. If we are connected to our maker, then his voice becomes our voice. But if we are not connected to him, if we are filled like the flute, if the flute is filled with with junk and material and dirt that goes in it, then it cannot make any sound. And the maker puts it down because he's not going to play that flute, he's going to get a new one that is empty from within, that can create a beautiful sound. So we have to stay empty of worldly materials so that we can connect to that world, because this world will continue to drag us towards it. He gives a beautiful example. I'll use two brief examples and then I'll go to some of his verses, because I think it's good to see how he actually uses this. And if you use the translations, you cannot imagine how Rumi is actually talking, and yet it's all poetic. The sentences are so connected, it looks like if he was writing it down as a prose. But in Persian, it's all rhyming and he does not have to go looking for words. It's amazing, miraculous poetry. However, first example he gives is that of a tailor. There's a tailor in town that is known to steal the material. Whenever you give him a cloth, he always steals from it. Everybody knew that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And yet, they did not know how to confront him. And he would deny always that he didn't do it. Oh, your shirt, this is what it was, and you could never catch it. One soldier was so proud of himself, he says, I am going to catch him. I will not let him steal my material. So he takes his suit material to him and he says, I'm going to sit in front. He says, I've heard that you steal the material from people. I'm going to sit here, cut it in front of me. I want you to really take care of it in my presence. And the tailor said, I don't know who told you all of that. I mean, you're a nice guy. I'm a nice guy. I mean, there is nothing to steal. Life goes on. And he says, by the way, have you heard of that so-and-so? And he started to tell him the stories of jokes. He was a jokester of top class. The tailor knew how to make people laugh, and he had so many collections of beautiful jokes. After one or two or three jokes, the soldier was totally mesmerized by his jokes. Now that when he gave the fourth joke, the tailor was laughing so much that he basically went to the ground and he was kind of looking down. The tailor cut some material and put it in the drawer. And when he looked up and he said, oh, give me another joke. Mind you are the band. And I have not heard jokes like this for a long time. He gave him another joke. Again, the same thing happened. He was so much flattered by this joke that he actually again lost eye-to-eye contact with the tailor, and he went down to the ground because he just could not help himself. Tailor takes another piece. And then next time again, give me one more joke like this. Man, this is the best day of my life. That was what the soldier said. And this time tailor says, listen to me. If I did a little bit more and if I told you more jokes, there won't be really enough left. Your jacket will be very short. Then he says, you did that? He said, well, of course I did that. But you could not see it because you were too busy laughing and enjoying this worldly pleasures. Here in this parable, Rumi says that soldier was your ghafil being, your inattentive personality, you as a human being. You were that soldier. You felt so proud of yourself that you can protect your material and your stuff, but in fact, you are no comparison to Darzi, the tailor, who he equated to Satan, to the devil. He says the devil is constantly trying to steal things from you, distract you, please you with other things, will throw you that this is beautiful, this is enjoyable. He gives you enjoyable things. When you're lost in that, at that time, you do not remember that your true purpose of coming here was to protect your material. Whatever was given to you, you were supposed to protect it, but you were distracted by worldly pleasures. In this case, the pleasure was those jokes. So, in this parable, you can see a simple little story how Rumi is using it to give a life lesson. That do not let the worldly pleasures, including those jokes, distract you from watching your interest. Your interest is to safeguard your person, safeguard your being, so that you're not polluted with the worldly things and things that you shouldn't be doing. Okay, that's one story. Now, let me just give a few verses of Rumi here, and if there's any time left, then we will go to Iqbal and maybe the other story also. Here is Rumi saying in his Masnavi, Aanchuna kazdis dar hastamdi, he bago chuamdi mastamdi. He says, Aanchuna kazdis dar hastamdi, as you have come from nothingness to your being, from nest to hust, from nothingness to your material being. The way you have come from being nothing to what your physical body is. Embago chuamdi mastamdi. Tell me, how did you come here? And he says, I'll give you a hint. You came here totally unconscious, unaware. You did not come out of your own volition. You came here, when you came into this world, you were totally unaware of yourself, totally unconscious. Ra hai amdan yadat namant, lek ramze bar to barhahem khan. He said, you do not remember the path that you took to get here. But I will give you a hint as to how you got here. Hoshraba guzar wanga hoshdar, goshra barbando anga goshdar. He says, forget that you are totally aware and you are alert and all that. Forget this awareness of this world. Try to be alert in the real sense. How? Close your ears. Don't listen to whatever is happening to you, and put your ear. Try to listen to the other world. Try to listen to the inner voice that you have. Naba goyam zake tu khami hunus. Naba goyam zake tu khami hunus. Dar bahari wa nadidasti tamuz. Let me read it again. Naba goyam zake tu khami hanus. Dar bahari wa nadidasti tamuz. He says, I am telling you that you are immature yet. You are unripe yet. You have seen the springtime of your life. You think that everything else is wonderful around you, but you have not seen the heat of the summer. Nothing has really burnt you up yet. You have not been ignited the way you should be ignited and burning to really find out what your reality is. E jahan chu darakhtas akaram. E jahan hamchu darakhtas akaram. Oh people, this world is like a tree. Ma baro chu meva hai neem kham. And we are on that tree like meva hai neem kham, like a fruit that is half ready, half ripe yet. We are like a fruit that is still unripe. Sakht giro kham hamar shakhra, zanke dar khami na shayad kakhra. He says, Sakht giro kham hamar shakhra. Those people that are incomplete yet, or imperfect yet, or immature yet, are not ripe yet, they keep their grip on the branch of the tree very hard. They are usually tightly stuck to the tree because they are immature yet. Zanke dar khami na shayad kahra. Because they know that they are not yet ready to be placed before the kings, before the royalty. So they are not that sweet enough. So they are not really going to let that tree go. Chunke pukhto gasht shirin lab guzan, sust giro shahara badadam. When they become sweet and become ripe, then they can easily ease the grip on the branch of the tree, and they, at that time, are ready to be taken away. And then they fall. Sakht giriyo ta'assub khamiyast. Ta janini kar khun ashamiyast. Beautiful verse. Sakht giriyo ta'assub khamiyast. Being tough and being rough and hanging on to worldly things, it's a khami, it's a naqs, it's a defect in you. Ta janini kar hum ashami as. As long as you are a babe, are a fetus in the mother's womb, your job basically is to keep sucking the blood. In other words, you are attached to the blood of your mother because you are not ready for this world yet. So it's exactly like that, that you are like that baby that is in the mother's womb, that you keep sucking the blood of your mother, but you are not yet ready to come out. Now, one verse that I chose for the last is that this is a little bit profound verse, so pay attention to it. Cheeze digar mand, amma guftanash, batu ruhul quds goyat tanatash. Batu ruhe al quds goyat tanash. He says there is another thing that I didn't tell you, but it's not my job to tell you that. Some angelic being, something superior, something out of this world will come and tell you that. In that he is hinting that I have told you how to get there and what is the status that you are in right now. But when you actually start doing that, then your own self will guide you. I cannot guide you beyond this point. And Rumi uses this kind of a verse.
Can you repeat that?
In other words, he says that I have told you that you're like a unripe fruit on the branch. This world is a tree, and you are an unripe fruit. You are hanging on to the tree. You are stuck to this world. This is the world, and you stuck to it. You are not becoming ripe. If you are not ripe, you will never fall off. Nobody will even eat you. Nobody will appreciate you. Nobody will know you are there. If you have ripened up and you are ready now to come to the royal table to be consumed, after that you will realize things. Your real life begins. You will understand what was the purpose of your life, and then that particular being, which will be you in this particular case, will guide yourself further on. Now, many places.
Yes. What is this thing about Ruhul Qudus will tell you, not me?
It's this Ruhul Qudus here. He does not mean Jibreel. Okay, he says a pure soul will tell you that. In other words, in this particular instance, he goes into a Jibreel Asho संभाल कर जिसे रखा है ला मकान के लिए. I have a song within me that even will shake up Jibreel, but I can't tell you here. I'll speak to him directly one to one. So, and Rumi uses that practically after every example, that this particular story has no end. I'm leaving it to you for your own imagination. Now here is a point. That's a very deep point in spirituality. And that particular point is, and we have always ended our discussion based on Rumi's kalam that leads to that, and that is they point to the fact that when you realize and you mature yourself and you build your khudi, like Iqbal says, then you become the vehicle of your creator. You do what he wants you to do. Your all actions become like his actions, and you become one to one with him. The reason they don't use these words in simple English is because everyone cannot understand that. This is why here Rumi is also saying there's another point there beyond this point that I'm not going to tell you, because some pure soul will have to really guide you to get that. Why? Because there is one thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not forgive, and that is shirk. Equating anybody with him. When you talk like that, it looks like you are saying that you can do what God can do. That can never happen. But God can use you to do things that God wants to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not come and put this in my mouth. He gives me the hand, he gets somebody to buy this thing for me, and he gets somebody to put it there, and eventually he gets me the strength to go there, get it, put it here. I feel that I have received it for XYZ, Masjid has arranged these snacks, but in fact Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has arranged all of that. Nothing happens without his permission. So these are some of the Rumi's verses that I thought I should speak in Persian and then give you simple meanings. I have tried to translate that in that page so that you have some idea. Now, I want to use Iqbal also once in a while because I don't want to ignore him completely. Now, one thing I love to do is read Iqbal in Urdu with due apologies from my friend. I will translate that in English. But reading Iqbal, proper Urdu, proper pronunciation is very important. And I think one must really concentrate, even if we know 1 or 2 or 3 poems of Iqbal in proper pronunciation, then obviously we feel that we have really done justice to Iqbal.
आपका तो पर्शियन का pronunciation भी माशाल्लाह बहुत
I don't speak Persian much, so for that reason it's not easy. But Urdu, of course, is okay for me. So I chose this particular nazm today so that I can give a message in this. I will, of course, if you take one of each, just one verse, you can build a lecture on that. And I have given quite a few verses here. So I will not be able to do justice to each verse, but there are many topics hidden in these, and each one of them deserves a tremendous concentration. Iqbal was addressing the young millat, young Muslims of his time, which is 100 years ago, 100 and let's say 10, 20 years ago. And he was of the opinion that if he can change the minds of young people, then future generations of Muslims will have some way to look up to and some kind of a hope for survival, because he had given up on the people of his age, quite frankly. He was saying that I'm frustrated by Imam Haram and Imam This and Imam Mullah and everybody, and I don't see any hope in these. But if I can convey my message to the young people, people of the future generations, then there will be a hope. And quite frankly, look what happened. He said these things 100 years ago. And youngsters now in world universities here and there are eager to learn about his philosophy and learn the language and try to learn lessons from his poetry. So let me read this few verses that I have collected here. This is the poem in Bange Dara in page 2. Tadabbur bhi kiya tune? Oh young Muslim lad, have you ever pondered about what sky that was from which you are broken down as a star? You are a star that belonged on a tribe, on a sky. You know what sky there was? Have you ever thought where your real self came to be? Where were your ancestors? कभी ये नौजवान मुस्लिम तदब्बर भी किया तूने? वो क्या गर्दू था? गर्दू is the sky. जिसका हाथ टूटा हुआ था. तुझे इस कौम ने पाला है आगोश मोहब्बत में. This particular nation, this millat, has raised you with love and care. कुचल डाला था जिसने पाँव में ताजे सरे दारा. That nation that had actually trampled over the crowns and the money and resources of the world and had actually given defeat to the big kings of Persia, they are the ones that have raised you with love. Tamaddan afri HALQA-E-RUMI-O jahandari. These were the people that really were cultured. They gave culture to this world. HALQA-E-RUMI-O jahandari. They are the ones who have created the constitutions as to how to rule the world. Those people were glorious. Your ancestors were really glorious. They did a lot of stuff. वो सहराए अरब यानी शुतरबानू का गहवारा. That desert of Arabia, the one that is known for camel herds and camels all around the place. Those that raised the camels, those were the people that raised you. Sama al-faqr fakhri ka raha shane imarat mein. Al-faqr fakhri is a hadith qudsi. Huzur Pak has said that I feel proud in being poor, in having less resources. There's pride in me. Hazrat Ali narrates this hadith. But he says, Sama al-Faqr fakhri ka raha shane amarat mein. Even when they were very rich and affluent, even then they kept living like we have pride in staying as poor, as fakirs, as if people that are constantly looking for sustenance from God. We do not worry about tomorrow. Fakr is our honor. Depending on God and realizing that He'll feed us tomorrow, we don't hoard anything. That was the kind of people that you had. Babo rango khalo khatche hajat ruhe zebara. Beautiful, beautiful Persian. He uses Babo rango khalo khatche hajat ruhe zebara. खूबसूरत चेहरे को संवरने की जरूरत क्या है? That's what he's saying. Why would a beautiful face need the colors and drawing lines and having eyebrows cut out like that and whatever else? Makeup is not essential. When you have a beautiful face, you don't have to really show it off. It's there. It glitters. It shines. They had their nature, but beauty was built into their nature. They did not have to fake anything. They didn't have to demonstrate anything to the world. गदाई में भी वो अल्लाह हवाले थे हुयूर इतने कि मुनम को गदा के डर से बख्शिश का न था यारा. Even when they were looking to others for resources, they were so proud and self-reliant that even those who wanted to help them, they were afraid, what if they turn our offer down? Because they were not extending their hand, give me and I'll take it. No. They were so proud and they were so self-confident that even though they could use some help, but even those who wanted to help them were scared to approach them as if they are going to be giving them something that they don't already have. Munem is the one who gives charity. गरज मैं क्या कहूँ तुझसे कि वो सहरा नशी क्या थे? In other words, what can I tell you? Who were those people that had their residence in those deserts? Jahangiro, Jahandaro, Jahanbano, Jahara. Jahangir are the ones that conquered the world. Jahandar, these were the people who could run the world. Then Jahanban, they were able to guard and they were able to take care of the world. Jahara, they were the beauty of the world also. Not only that they created their world, they were able to run it, they were able to make it look beautiful, and they were basically totally sovereign over it. अगर चाहूँ तो नक्शा खींच कर अल्फाज में रख दूँ. What a beautiful word. अगर चाहूँ तो नक्शा खींच कर अल्फाज में रख दूँ, मगर तेरे तखय्युल से फजूतर है वो नज़ारा. Again, Iqbal is pointing to the same thing as Rumi was saying. He's also trying to say the same thing. If I wanted to, I could have painted the entire picture for you. But again, I can probably do that in my poetry. But if I did that, your imagination will not be able to capture that. Because he is imagining way beyond me and you can think. अगर चाहूँ तो नक्शा खींचकर अल्फाज में रख दूँ, मगर तेरे तखय्युल से फजूतर है वो नज़ारा. गवा दी हमने जो असलाफ से मीरास पाई थी. गवा दी हमने जो असलाफ से मीरास पाई थी. We have lost the inheritance that we had received from our ancestors. Simple translation. सरैया से ज़मीं पर आसमान ने हमको दे मारा. Somehow or the other, our destiny, our luck,
Stars.
the fate have dropped. Suraya is a star also, but from heights, the sky has, or the nature has really brought us down to earth. We have become nothing from a very lofty personality. We were way up in the sky like a Suraya, like a star. But we are now on the ground. We are downtrodden. हुकूमत का तो क्या रोना कि वो एक आर्दी शय थी. We don't care that we lost the governance and the countries and the sovereignty of many nations. That's temporary, comes and goes. मगर नहीं दुनिया के आईने मुसल्लम से कोई चारा. But with the- नहीं
मुस्लिम से
नहीं दुनिया के आईने मुस्लिम से कोई चारा. You're right. But he says, never mind that we have lost the sovereignty of nations and we are not running many governments and we may not be people of power in many areas. That part is understandable. But again, losing the Muslim way of life, losing the way that we were giving to the humanity, what we were offering to the humanity, how to live, how to govern themselves, how to have their way of life, that is Bazegas. That is what we were really delivering to the humanity. And we will not be able to deliver that if we are not in that position to do so. You know, this Misra is a little bit tough for me to say I am a Muslim. But Iqbal wrote that, so something is missing, but never mind. शायरी के फन से गिरा हुआ है तो and I can't read it as आईने मुस्लिम, but नहीं दुनिया के आईने मुस्लिम से कोई चारा. We have to put a little रुकन extra there, otherwise it's difficult to read it.
मिसरा जो है ये
वजन से गिरा हुआ है. बहरहाल it's the same way everywhere, so now he comes to the point that he wanted to say it, and there are two verses here that I could talk for days on them. मगर वो इल्म के मोती किताबें अपने आबा की जो देखें उनको यूरोप में तो दिल होता है सिपारा. When he goes to Europe and sees the Islamic literature books that these people have taken from us and put it in their libraries and their treasures and written more, taking things from it and made their literature grow. He says, when I see these in Europe, when I see this outside Muslim world, then my heart cries, it breaks into pieces, it becomes 30 pieces. And I just cannot bear when I see these things that have been taken away from us, and they are now in Europe. Of course, some of them are in Europe, but quite a bit of it was lost in Baghdad when Baghdad was. Then he gives an example, beautiful example. And this is a verse that he took from Ghani Kashmiri, a poet of Srinagar for Kashmir. He says, Ghani, roze siyah hai pire kanara tamasha kun. Ghani was his shair's name. Roze siyah, the dark day. Pire Kana, the old man of Kana, Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam. Tamasha kun, look, watch. Just see, look at the dark day of Yaqub alayhi salam. Look at the dark day of the Yaqub alayhi salam. Ke noor didash, the light of his eyes. Roshan kunad is brightening up. Chashme Zulaikha, eyes of Zulaikha. He says, Zulaikha looks at Yusuf and her eyes are brightened up, and he has made a glow environment where Zulaikha is and where he is and all that, Yusuf, and yet his father has lost his eyesight and he is totally dark. Now this is a beautiful example of how something that belongs to you is benefiting others, just like Iqbal is saying that the books, Islamic literature written by Islamic scholars, are now being used by others, especially in West, and they are developing their research on it. They are benefiting from it, from the teachings within it, and it's like Jacob, that his son should have been the nur of his eyes, and he somehow becomes blind, and that Joseph is giving so much light to the eyes of Zulaikha and people that are surrounding him. गनी खुद है ना, उसका नाम तखल्लुस है. जस्ट मैं याद कहता हूँ, गनी काश्मीरी का शेर है ना, ये इकबाल का नहीं है.
अच्छा.
This is, he took it from Ghani Kashmiri, and by the way, I have read this beautiful poem of Ghani Kashmiri. It's a beautiful poem, but Iqbal just took this particular verse, and he says that you can
दोनों मिसरे उनके गनी कश्मीरी.
Ghani Kashmiri पूरा शेर मिसरा दोनों है.
जी कोट्स में है ना.
हाँ, कोट्स में मैंने इसीलिए लिखा है. Now, lesson to the youngsters basically, and the challenge to the youngsters is that there is so much that your ancestors have left for you. If you only could connect to them, if you could only get their teachings, follow their path, and be selfless. Do not worry about yourself as an individual, but give it to the world the message that you have, the message of oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the message that you are from Him and you're returning to Him, message that unless you connect from within yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will never find a path to go back to Him, message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge of everything, whether you believe in Him or not, message that if you connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make that intention that you want to be one with Him, a time will come when you will purify yourself so much that you will find it very easy. A stage will come when your intention is good and you have now taken the path, He will take over. Then He will guide you and your inner self will guide you. You won't have to worry about anything else. Now, I think I have a couple of minutes to give you the other Rumi story, which is pertinent to this. Majnu wanted to go and see Lala. He found out that Lala is in such and such area right now, traveling in a desert or whatever else. So he gets onto a camel, she-camel, and he wants to go meet Lala. He's going as long as he's alert and he's telling, pulling the muhar of the she-camel. The camel is walking and going in the right direction. The moment he gets lost and he gets a little bit distracted and he thinks about Lala and he goes into that trance where he's thinking of Lala and nothing else, the camel turns her face and tries to go back home because she had a baby that she had delivered not too long ago, a month or so ago. Now she wants to be close to her child, to her baby, and yet Majnu is taking her to his beloved. So each time Majnu sees that she's going back, he pulls back again and he tries to kick her here and there, and then she goes to the right path. And again the same thing happens. Days go like this and he's not getting anywhere because he's every so often forgetting, and she's coming back and she goes towards where she wants to go. He wants to, and he actually intends to go to his beloved. Here Rumi uses that parable. He says it in a beautiful way, but I'm just giving you the mafhum of that, the actual message that is contained in that. Here he says that if you realize who your beloved is, and finally, by the way, Majnu realizes that this camel is not going to work for me. If I have to get to my beloved, I will have to walk on my own 2 feet. So he lets her go to her place, and once he abandons her, then it was only a few steps for Lala. Lala was not far, but he basically was being distracted by this camel that had its own wants and needs. So Rumi uses this parable to basically tell us that there will be so many distractions. Others will not basically help you in this particular path. If you want to find your beloved, if you want to go to where you want to go, you will have to then be concentrated yourself and put all your efforts into trying to find that particular destination that is your destination. So he, in parables again, is trying to tell you that as long as you are taking refuge in the worldly things, if you're wanting to have a camel take you there, camel will have its own priorities and will not be the one that will be really thinking of you. You have to do it yourself. Once you make that intention, you don't need the camel. Lala will be just few steps from you. It's very easy and very possible to get your destination once you know what you want and you trust yourself and develop that capability to achieve that. So again, here also the story is, do not be distracted by the affairs of the world. If you want to be one with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, try to make an intention and try to get to Him yourself. That's what you need, and that is the Ruhul Quds that is he's using as a metaphor here, not Gabriel, because that would be almost like blasphemy. I don't think he would do that. We are only the prophets are supposed to get Jibreel, nobody else. So here he goes at a length in tafsir to tell you that he doesn't mean that. He means that within you, that angelic being that is in you, your spirit.
It could be like Nafs al-Mutmainna.
Yes.
That's
That
the
nafs,
Ruhul Quds.
nafs is a different
Nafs.
entity.
But it's the
Yeah,
final
nafs
stage.
is a different entity. But yes. So basically that is the lesson from Rumi, and that is the lesson from Iqbal. Iqbal basically is telling also that if you really took the path of your ancestors when they had conquered the world, Ottoman Empire was huge and Islam spread so fast, so quickly that it's possible again, but you have to learn the ways of your ancestors. I think I'll stop here now for questions.
रूमी की जो ये एक्सप्लेनेशन है ना, ये एग्जांपल बड़ी वो सिंपल है, बड़ी टची है.
Exactly. This is why his book is unique. And if you read Persian, and if you read simple translation of it, it seems like he's actually talking. In poetry, generally, the words are taken here and there, and it's difficult. You have to synthesize again. But his poetry is such that it goes like a story upon story upon story. He never finishes one story whole. He starts a story, and after a couple of lines, he goes into a second story and third story, then keeps coming back to the first and second. Keeps you engaged. It's like having a book of gravity. You can't put it down.
ऐसे वो आपने लास्ट में बताया शेर और वोल्फ वाला था.
हाँ.
वो शिकार के खिलाफ.
Exactly.
तो वो कहती मैंने सीख लिया, इसी से I learn from here.
I learn it. Yes.
I learn from here.
Yes. Alaikum salam. Any questions?
The Persian words of Iqbal. I think we're talking about referring to the Ulur Jihra, Ulur faces of the Misal. You mentioned they don't need any makeup, adornment, colors.
He is using
to
again.
beautify their faces.
Yeah, he is using again that example that when you are beautiful, you don't have to adorn yourself. He says when you have the real stuff, Islam, you already are shining. You already have all that you need. Then you really don't have to make up anything. You don't really have to pretend that you're going to do this and this and that. This will come out of you automatically because he has already told you that your ancestors were like this, they did this, they did that, they were conquerors of the world, they gave the constitution to the world, the Ain-e-Islam is the beautiful thing for humanity. All of that is there in your ancestors. You don't have to pretend that you will be able to do this because you have done that in the past. It's in your record. You don't have to show off. In other words, you don't have to change your face to look good. You are already good looking by your character. So he used this as a worldly example. So when you are well beautiful, you don't need makeup. That's what he says. Babo rango khalo khat, je hajat ruhe zebara. Usko hajat hi nahi hai. Does not need it. इसको उसकी हाजत नहीं. यहाँ के जो लोगों की हाजत होती है without a makeup in the morning, if you see the people that are with you, if you see them without makeup, oh my God,
In the bus in New York City.
you don't recognize them. Yes. So there are people who take quite a bit of time in the morning before they present themselves to the family.
It's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
It's very interesting.
I'm thinking when I'm reading the stages of life that it describes.
Yes.
Quran talks of the stages of 4 stages of life.
Yes.
From a born baby to a young person, then maturity and the old age. So this is a little bit different concept.
Here, he's
That's
talking
physical.
about maturity of character.
Character.
He says, you are a fruit, this world is a tree,
Yeah.
and you are not mature unless you actually mature yourself. Okay? So to mature yourself, you have to be kind of aware that you have to let go of this tree. To let go of this tree, you have to loosen your grip on this world. What he's giving you an example is that let go of this world. Don't follow.
कुरान तो आपको गायनी वो औपचारिक पढ़ा है. Here he's giving you different.
Yeah, he is giving a different example, basically by saying that you will realize that unless you give up on this world, you will not be able to get that world. You have to let this go. Let this follow you if it comes. But let this go. Don't hold on to it.
Yeah.
And then he gives the example of the baby. As long as the baby is in the mother's womb, it keeps sucking the blood. And it cannot sustain itself. In other words, you are still taking, but you can't give anything. But when you come out, that you want to give something to others, you have to let the worldly things go.
ये
So-
डॉक्टर साहब ये जो शेर है कासाए चश्मे हरीसा पूरी इसका दोबारा कहिए बहुत ही
आसाए चश्मे हरीसा पुर न शुद्ध, ता सदफ काने न शुद्ध, पुर दुर न शुद्ध. People that are greedy, their eyes, the cups of their eyes can never be filled. Pur na shuddh, it never fills. You have $10 million, you want 20 million. You have 30 million, you have 10 buildings, you want 15 buildings. And this is natural. Kasae chashme harisa. People see it if they are greedy, they want it. They see this, they want it. They see this. Kasae chashme is a beautiful example that he says.
Yeah,
The
this is-
katora of your eye, the cup of your eye, of
Never
those
filled.
greedy people is never filled. But when he gives the example of the oyster, if you know how pearl is made, if the oyster keeps his mouth like that, the water gushes through and the sand gushes through, you never make a pearl. But a raindrop comes in, an oyster is there, and oyster's face is up, and the raindrop comes in and he closes his mouth, goes into the water, you got a pearl.
just one drop of water.
One drop of water and gives you pearl.
Yes.
Because pearl comes from within the oyster itself. It's a calcium kind of a thing, and it becomes beautiful pearl only and only if the oyster is closed. So you get a little something,
Yeah.
feel content. Don't keep your mouth open for everything that comes by.
वरना जेल जाना पड़ेगा.
Exactly. Kasaye chashme harisa purna shud. Repeat after me. Kasaye chashme harisa purna shud. Ta sadaf khane na shud. Pur dur na shud.
Kasam koza.
Kuza,
कूजा है.
Kuza है.
Koza chishme.
एक जगह पे कासा है, एक जगह पे कूजा है. मैंने
कुछ किताबों में
कासा भी है, कुछ में कूजा
ये
है.
डॉक्टर साहब नीचे वाला मिसरा भी दोबारा करें गर्भ बरेजी बहरा दरगोजा
कौन सा वाला है?
इसी का नीचे
इसके नीचे जो है
Garbharezi behra.
हाँ, वो या इधर. हाँ, इधर मैंने लिखा.
You have to get away from the world.
put the ocean in a cup.
वरना जेल जाना पड़ता है.
Where is
How
that?
much will you get a
Where
day?
did I put it? Oh, here.
इसी के
Right, I know that, but I didn't have the page.
डॉक्टर साहब अपनी कभी
Oh.
इनका भी फलसफा सुनना है.
नहीं, एक second, let me just answer this. गर्भरेजी बहरा दर कूजाए चंद कंजद किस्मत यक रोजा है. If you take your little cup to the ocean and you want to bring something from the ocean, what will you get? A day's worth. That's what he's saying. He says, गर्भरेजी बहरा दर कूजा है. अगर तू समुद्र को एक कूजे में डालने के लिए कूजा समुद्र में जाए और एक कूजा लेके जाए अपने हाथ में, चंद गंद क्या लेके आएगा? किस्मत यक रोजा है, एक दिन की जरूरत की चीज तुम्हें क्या मिलेगा? Take a bigger vessel, be an ocean yourself, so that you have constant supply of it. Don't just take a little thing. No. इकबाल भी तो कहता है ना, तू ही नादा चंद कलियों पे कनात कर गया, वरना गुलशन में इलाज तंगी दामा भी है. You go to the garden and you want to bring some flowers, and you put as many as you can in here, and then that's good. If you were to say something, I want some more flour, they would have given you a bigger bag. Take as much as you want. We have meetings. Good example. I arrange many meetings and I pay because of, you have to do these things when you're running an organization. There is so much. There is so, there is so much food left at the end that we can't even find people to take it home. So if you are a little bit patient, if you have an objective, then you will come with much more than you anticipated. But if you basically only are lakir ke fakir and you really do not think beyond a certain thing, you will be totally left out and deprived of the word, what nature has to provide you. Khudi will take 2 or 3 lectures, so I am not touching that subject at all. But whenever we are ready for Khudi, we will have to do at least every 2 weeks or so that we don't lose track. And it's a beautiful, beautiful topic that we should talk about. You want to stop it? You stop it. Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Mashallah.
Thank you. Jazakallah.
Thank you very much.
Doctor.